Good afternoon. Check, check.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's afternoon and, me and Harish would not like you all to be denied of a good lunch. But let us try to make it interesting before the lunch break so that, we serve more to you as an appetizer, discussing a very, very contemporary topic around D2C. D2C, which is direct to consumer or direct to customer, as you say, is something which is becoming more and more part of business as consumer, as customer. We become much more informed. We start driving our buying and consuming behavior based on data, based on knowledge, based on information. And hence, the paradigm shift that D2C is going to have in our life, the advent of technology in the use of D2C, is going to really leapfrog in time to come. In fact, in recent data from one of the strategy consultants says that 70% of our customer expects personalized interactions. How can D2C brand leverage advanced data analytics to tailor customer experience? So as you become much more personalized, are there the other flip side of it? What happens in too much of personalization? That's another question that is going on. In light of finding that smaller D2C brands often achieve higher customer preference or loyalty, how does D2C pan out, etc., etc. So Harish, you see, sleep, breathe D2C.
Yeah.
So my first question to you will be around this whole hyper personalization where D2C brands are moving beyond basic. A few years back we heard personalization, then we heard about, hyper personalization. Today we are talking about, I don't know what. What is the next avatar of personalization in D2C going to be?
Yeah. So, there is a personalization. We should look at it from two angles, right? One is understanding three angles. One is understanding the story of the customer. Second is the data itself. And third is the ethos of the company and what promises you make to the customer based on personalization, right? So there is a lot of fear when people talk about personalization, assuming that you will know a lot more about customers than what technically you should be knowing, right? So when the personalization data exceeds to a point where the ethos of the company starts getting greedy, that's when the line between usable data or usable personalization data and greedy data sort of comes into picture, right? So I would, on the contrary, argue that this amount of personalization we have today is good. Go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if, for example, you would go to, D2C means a lot of things. For example, D2C could be SKU based, like an Amazon, Flipkart. You go buy something, you're done with it. D2C also means, for example, for an insurer or a bank, where it's actually about the relation. So for an insurer, for example, for ACO, it's about the relationship you build with the customer. So personalization is part of the story. I need to know a lot more about the customer to help him or her make the right kind of choices, right? So it's not like we sell a standard SKU. So two people buying health insurance, D2C, are not going to buy the same product. They're not going to get the same pricing. They're not going to, for example, get the same construct of the product. So personalization here is critical. It's important. It's important because the customer needs to be told what is the right kind of a choice the customer needs to make. And hence the relationship building in terms of working along with the story to understand, hey, who are you, what are you? So the data gathering part has to be part of the sales cycle, right? Sometimes I know it affects the funnel a little bit to say, hey, am I just gathering data, I'm not selling enough to the customer. You don't have to sell enough to the customer, right? The customer eventually will make a right buying choice. Getting the customer to a point where I'll give you an example. Like if you go to a sari shop, right? Like a mom and pop sari shop, etc. You sit with the person there next to you. He will not just throw something at you. He'll try to understand. He's like, sir, what are you buying for? Is there a shadi at home? Is it a gift? Is it for your somebody else? You would say, hey, this is for my grandma's birthday. Suddenly he will whip up something from somewhere and say, this is what she would like. So what the person is doing there is actually understanding your context. He's actually personalizing that particular product to you. D2C brands need to do the same thing, right? How they gather that data, right? How much data do they gather? How much do they remember, from what they gather? How do they tailor make what you need? That changes. And D2C allows you to scale, right? So that one super salesman in that sari shop needs to be digitalized and replicated at scale for millions of users across India, for example, right? So if I take Aqua as an example, so we let customers make the right choice. For example, for buying a health insurance, right? Depending on the construct of the family, right? How is the husband, how's the wife? Are the kids in the family? How are the parents? So understanding them, personalizing them. If you take life insurance, what phase of life are you in, right? Are you a youngster trying to buy? How's your risk cover? Are you already married? Is the couple working, for example, right? Then your financial risk is much lower by 1% because there are two people supporting the family. So I would argue the other way around, or rather build up to it to say personalization, data gathering, as long as it is within the limits where the company doesn't get greedy. By greedy, I mean you don't use the data for which you have not collected it, right? That's when greed sets in, right? But if you promise a customer to say, hey, I want to know your age because I want to tailor make the risk for you. For a bank, for example, I want to know you a lot more better because I may suggest the right investment portfolio for you, or I may suggest the right kind of a saving plan for you, or I want to understand your risk profile so that I can suggest the right kind of investment tools for you. I think that's the right kind of personalization. That's the right kind of level into which the D2C company needs to know or understand the data. Beyond that is greed. You say, hey, I collect the user's data, I'm using it for something else, right? For example, fraud risk model in insurance. You need the data to serve the larger community, right? 5% people fraud. If it effectively, superimposes on the rest of the 95 good people. How do you catch that? What is the right time to do it? What is the right data that will give you that? I think this is all leading into that piece. I would say personalization is needed. Definitely you have to do it. And nobody in D2C can survive without that. But what promises you make when you capture, collect the data, how do you build on top of it? And from there, finally, how do you give the right kind of value to them based on that personalization, I think is critical to D2C brands.
So, you mentioned data quite a few times. And let me tell you, day before yesterday, I was traveling. I was at the airport. The flight was delayed, so I thought, let me pick up a coffee. As I went to pick up the coffee, while paying, the person asked me my name. I told my name. Then with 10 people around, I was asked, what's your phone number? In impulse, I was going to tell my phone number, and then I said, hey, there are 10 people around me hearing my phone number. So, what is the line with data regulations that you need to draw? And is it totally going to become that? Or what is the humanizing element of D2C into it? Because, data regulations, data privacy bill coming in will drive certain things in certain manner. And that we need to respect. And if you say that D2C needs to be driven by data insights, what boundary do we draw? You also mentioned that, in a moment, pop sari shop, that one person who is there with that sari shop forever, family would go down and look for that guy because that guy would know your needs. As you scale, how do you drive D2C as not a one-stop campaign, but a larger engagement with customer to really add value to your business?
It's a fantastic question. I think there are three parts to this question, if I understand, right? Number one, where do we draw the line? Number two, what you have mentioned more or less stands into how can there be consistency of this D2C experience, right? And number three, how do we scale? I think we'll sort of understand them in this fashion. Again, like I said, every company makes a promise to the customer when they reach them out, right? And so D2C brands make a promise. If you're selling a SKU to the customer, like you're selling groceries, you're making a promise that, hey, my D2C brand stands for freshness. My D2C brand stands for cost. right? My D2C brand stands for fashion. My D2C brand stands for latest, in trends. Like insurance, the D2C brand stands for trust, to say, hey, if your health is compromised, I'm here for you. If it's life insurance, if something happens to you, I'm here for you, right? So the ethos of the company actually drive that line. You need to collect as much data as you need to help your customer to make the right choice. I think that's very critical. Now there is a mesh of companies that work together in an ecosystem to bring something to you, right? So there, I think the lines get blurred a little bit. When somebody collects a little bit more data, passes on to you, you do something else along with it, come back, etc., right? A typical case is, how do I do KYC today? Right? So I collect the data of the customer, maybe the phone number, the name, etc. Then I would want to know who the customer is, because there's a regulation behind it, right? So I need to pass it to somebody who will collect far more data, like maybe a PAN number, an Aadhaar number, somewhere else, because he has to do it to ensure that the KYC is happening there. Now, how much of that information do I get back, or do I need, or do I persist, as an example, is left on the ethos of the company. You cannot change the ethos of the company overnight. You should not. Like, for example, is a company that's selling sugary drugs, like sugar-based products, right? Like juice, etc., etc. Suddenly, one fine day, you can't flip and say, I'm now a health-conscious company. Nobody would believe you, right? So you need to build that over a period of time. So what you collect needs to be in line with what you are. So that's where the line between the privacy, etc., sort of stands. Coming to the second piece, scaling is a problem for small tech companies, for small companies, and as they scale, they miss that bus. Eventually, because they don't invest in the smart tech that they need at scale. For example, if you would buy, say, from a craftsman on a marketplace, after you make that buy, for example, you buy a pottery, right, a very expensive pottery for your house, like 5,000 rupees. I've seen that the proprietor will call you. He will say, thanks for buying this. Is everything okay? Did it get delivered to you? Is there a crack, etc.? And then, say, hey, why did you make this choice, sir? It's like a very expensive just for a pottery. You would like to learn a little bit more about you, but that's very proprietary driven. That doesn't scale because he is not investing in a CRM. So the next time you want to do something, he may not pick up the call, or he may not transfer the same experience to you if somebody else makes that call, right? So small companies, as they scale, need to invest in this tech because of consistency. You need to transfer the knowledge, you need to transfer that experience, you need to transfer that ownership that one particular proprietor had into a tool or digitally, so that when there are 100 such customers, he cannot call 100. If 100 call them back, he cannot answer it, right? So you need to invest in that particular tech to scale. That's where smaller companies becoming larger eventually don't end up investing at the right point in time, right? And that's when if you see the large companies, consumer experience business is not as tailor-made as the small companies, because they can afford it, they cannot afford it at scale. So the investment has to happen at the right point in time in the technology, so that when you scale, you are able to provide exactly the same kind of consumer experience that you were doing at a smaller scale. I think that's the last piece of how we look at it.
So that very interesting points made. That brings me to a very different element of it. With multi-channel marketing becoming the norm, the uniform voice of D2C brands across platform, and how much of that you do to drive loyalty? Again, two questions. Because if you today, suppose, if you're trying to, say, renew an insurance of your car or a bike, start getting barrage of WhatsApp and SMSs on different codes, etc. And beyond the point, it's an irritation. Even if, suppose, last time I did insurance with that X company, because of the irritation, there is no loyalty factor in me. I probably will move to someone. So two questions. One, how do you drive a uniform voice across multi-channel for the brand? And the second, how do you ensure you drive loyalty? Because the choices are enormous for any products or services that you're trying to buy today.
Yeah. So I think both of these we partially answered, as we have been talking about. One is multi-channel. Channel is just a medium, right? What you're doing in the channel is you're actually, again, selling a promise to the customer. So if your messaging is consistent across all the channels, then multi-channel actually helps. For example, you could not have an advertisement that says we are the cheapest, and then you end up on the website and you're not the cheapest, right? Or offline you say, hey, there are no strings attached when you buy the product. And online, when you go, you see that there are like hundreds of smaller disclaimers, etc. And then this is where the multi-channel fails, right? Because the promises you make, irrespective of how you do it, you have to have that consistent ethos, as we call it, across. Your management structures usually come out of that. Your sales team is thinking exactly the same way. Your tech team is building the product. It's exactly the same way. Your pre-sales team is talking to the customers. Exactly the same way your messaging is going out to the customers. Exactly the same way, your ops team handles it, when queries come in. So your internal management structure has to support a consistent promise, consistent message. More importantly, I think you should stand for something, right? Because today there's so much noise. You take any product, any category, there are hundreds of people doing what you're doing. You need to stand up for something, and that's how you get recognized above the noise. Else you're just part of it, right? Like I could, as an example, take Acco Platinum, which is a very popular health product. We say, hey, no strings attached. Absolutely no disclaimers, no deductions, nothing, yada yada, nothing. Simplify to the customer and keep their promise consistent. When you go to the hospital and make a claim, no strings attached. It's not like when you bought it, we sold you different, etc. Right? So that consistency in multi-channel is what is beneficial. Companies need to stick to this. If they stick to this, they make the right win. It's like you go to a fashion D2C product, you see something, you'll end up on their store. The experience and the promise should not be different. And as long as you keep that ethos right, I think you'll get it right. That's the first part of answering probably that question. And what is the second thing that you want to talk about?
The second piece was that how do you drive the loyalty?
Oh, yeah. So loyalty, I think, automatically comes in when you deliver this consistent messaging, right? People switch loyalty if the cost of switching loyalty is too small, number one. Or number two, the experience of switching loyalty is very small. It's like hailing an auto rickshaw, right? You stand in the front, you hail an auto rickshaw, he comes, doesn't take you, the next one comes. There's no difference between him and him. You're not loyal to this versus that, because there is no cost to change, the service that you're getting in. But if you take financial sector, if you take even, for example, SKU-based systems, right? The loyalty comes in from what you get from what was promised to you. All D2C brands, they don't have a human-facing front, right? There's nobody coming to you and saying, hey, you tried this, it didn't happen. The brand needs to stand for what it is. And if they consistently deliver, automatically loyalty, gets built in. Some products inherently are very loyal. Like you buy an insurance, you don't shift because somehow you didn't find it right? But other products probably don't have. The wedge into changing the loyalty is very small, right? You could buy a phone from here or a phone from there. But the moment you bought a phone from here and they delivered on time and they delivered exactly what you wanted and they promised you the discounts that they have, the next time you do it, even though you still see the same price, you have a propensity to go here, because your experience there was right. Because, they were tuned to your needs and they made right what they told you they would do. Right? So delivering on the promise, having consistency in their messaging across the entire organizational chain, not just the sales cycle, not just the management cycle, not just, your consumer experience channel, across the chain will preserve and drive loyalty. It's easy to do in a D2C brand. It's also difficult to break it very easily. Like some customer says, hey, you sold me X, but then Y happened. It becomes viral very soon, right? So there is a way, so it's a double-edged sword. It's very easy to build loyalty. It's also very easy to lose loyalty, at the same time. But consistency, keeping up the promises, using your unichannel across to send that messaging, and doing right by the customer, and your management ethics, your management structures have to support it. It's not like the CEO is thinking something else and the sales head thinks something else, right? So building that right in the organization, when you're small and keeping that consistent as you grow, I think that's the key to win this multi-channel and ensuring that, we are there.
So let me ask you a tricky one then, negative sentiments. Different product category will have a very different impact. For example, you took the example of insurance and sari, so let me try to come back to those two examples.
Yeah, sure.
I buy a sari, I don't like the color, the fabric, I probably ask for a return, okay, and probably I write that, look, I didn't like the color, the fabric, the quality. There's a way to handle. I buy insurance. I'm at a hospital with a critical patient getting discharged. I submit something in the morning, wait till evening to get 100 questions answered, though I have paid the premium for a particular product, and I'm running pillar to post to get that, whole approval come. And, it has a negative impact on me, not only about the product, but, it is having a negative impact, a ripple impact also on the patient who is, in a stress waiting for 8 hours, 10 hours, trying to get out of the hospital and go home. How do you handle these two very different world of negativity?
Yeah, I mean, if we think these two are different, then there is inherently a problem, right? There are two very important things that D2C brands need to stand for or need to have as part of their structure, as their DNA, as I call it. One is customer empathy. Customer empathy needs to drive everything that you do. It could be the product that you construct, it could be the service that you give, it could be how you do it, it could be how you price it, it could be how you service the customer at the end, number one. Number two is being customer centric. I mean, these two very different things. Being customer centric is thinking in the minds of the customer. Customer empathy is feeling exactly what the customer is feeling at that point in time. And both your product and service have to be there. Okay. That's the key to win the D2C business. Yeah. So taking this example, if I don't empathize with the customer who is in a hospital trying to get their parent discharged, has to catch a flight, for example, is still struggling with money coming in, etc., then you're already losing the plot, if I may say so, right? Second thing is, like I said, being very consumer centric. So if my online system fails, do I have a backup where the customer can just call me and say, "Sir, don't worry, if this fails, I'm here, I'm sending somebody over," or I am going to consistently, work with you through this entire process. You don't have to call me 20 times. There's no 20 windows. I'm your executive who's going to work with you, right? So having that tiered consumer experience support, feeling empathy to that particular customer will ensure that, that you do right by the customer. Negative feedback is going to be there, right? And today everybody is used to it. But again, people look at negative feedback also very differently. There is like you said, if you go to Amazon, for example, people look at the product and they see the rating of the product, right? They see, 4.5 means that majority of people feel, it is nice. When you come to an insurance, there are key metrics that drive it, like claims ratio, for example. Somebody looks at it and says, "Hey, have these people done right by all customers?" It's not about what somebody else says or somebody else feels. I think people today understand how to read and consume reviews very well. Like I said, it's a chance for the D2C brand to build it. Like you call me or you say, "Hey, something is wrong. I met with an accident on the road," right? And then nobody's coming up to me. How do I engage you, right? Do I engage you on so people talk about it on social channels, right? How do I engage with you? How do I ensure that I get connected to you, but then I have my means of working along with you, right? So we need to use all this together in tandem. Your product needs to support it. Your service arm needs to support it. Your ethos needs to support it, right? And you need to have that customer empathy at that point in time. D2C is all about customer empathy. It's all about being centric. You revolve around the customer and not the other way around. I think that's the key to win. So I would put it like that.
I think, we are running out of time. So one question to you last, which always bothers me. You spoke about ethos of business. We also keep hearing D2C brands work with influencers who generally are engaged to write good, and which may not actually reflect the actual behavior of the products or services that you're trying to buy. Any reflection on that?
Yeah. Number one, you need to work with an influencer whom you think is going to influence the market right. Shouldn't be anybody who is popular. Not because you're yourself, not because you're followers. You need to find the person who can send that messaging across. Absolutely. And for example, if you take at TACO, we have Madhavan who talks about, how you should choose a particular insurance, right? Is the right kind of insurer because people think that he's an intellectual. People relate to him when they make a important decision, like
he or she needs to be a brand, genuine brand.
Absolutely, genuine brand. That person needs to stand for what you are. And now we know this, all these influencers, who are like random off the mill, say random something else, people lose money. That's the wrong kind. You need to choose that right kind of the influencer who sort of embodies what you are and then work with them. I think that's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Thanks. I would like to bring this to a close. A very intense conversation with Hari, and hope you all enjoyed it. From my perspective, 2, 3 key takeaways that D2C, if you really want to understand and serve a customer better in terms of goods and services, you need to actually put yourself in that shoe and empathize. Second, data will become, much more powerful driver and catalyst in terms of driving, how you start reinventing your products and services in the D2C business. And third, what you do, you need to be genuine about it so that it creates its own branding and loyalty. With that, thank you everyone.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for hosting me, and also thanks for being a nice audience. I don't know if there's questions around, etc. I think we will be around here, and will not come between you and your lunch, like you promised. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Any one question
Yeah,
if
any
you
one
want to
question,
ask?
if
Yeah,
somebody has, we
please,
could
one or
take.
two questions we can take.
We'll keep it very quick. Running short of time. Thank you.
Insurance or financial services in particular are the most pesky and this thing for the customers. Like I get 10 calls, I say I'm not interested, again same company, and I'm giving an example of a credit card. I have my bank account, I have my credit card, he calls me and says, please take this credit card. And the other thing is, we keep receiving messages from banks saying this is your relationship manager, mobile number, everything is given, but there is no response when we call. That is used only to sell other products. I think this is very dangerous for financial services industry. If at all any organization, fintech organization is interested in taking care of customers, I think this is one point they should take care. What is your take on this?
Let me try to answer that. With data privacy bill coming in, I think many of these will get sorted. Today, if you look at most of the call centers also, primarily at times you feel that the enablement or the way they need to engage, the what question need to be asked, are not probably there where it needs to be in terms of professionalism, in terms of how you need to do it, etc. And I think every organization, accepts that, and they are working a lot on that. And I think once the data privacy bill, kind of really starts enforcing itself, you'll find a lot of these, bottlenecks getting eradicated slowly. Yeah. Thank you then. I won't.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Yeah.
you.